Tales of Kandris.
Settling his tab, Onres stepped into the busy road and turned left. He needed supplies from the general store first. The owner was a sprightly older woman who flirted with him shamelessly, which he used to get a good price on Savinilk jerky, a new camp cookware set, a tent, and other odds and ends. He promised to see her when he was in the area again and asked for directions to the blacksmith. After a short walk, the sound of metal pounding and grinding greeted his ears. The shop was a wide building with items for sale at one end and the metalwork in the back. He stepped inside as the shop bells rang loudly overhead. A friendly young woman greeted him, parting a thick curtain as she entered the room.
"Greetings,"
she smiled.
"How can we help you?"
Onres approached the counter and laid a pair of thick-bladed long knives in front of her.
I need these sharpened.
The blades weren't all that ornamental. Long, dark blades with swirling designs typical of Boszan forging techniques, guards and pommel of the same metal and horn-accented hilts.
"Functional,"
the woman commented, looking over the craftsmanship.
"Highly utilitarian."
I'm not gaudy.
Onres stated matter-of-factly.
As long as they help keep me alive, they're fine.
"Standard or Larud?"
She looked up from the weapons back to him. Larud sharpening would help the blades maintain their edge for a longer period of time, but the process was longer, along with more cost. He considered it and decided to go with the Larud. It would probably be a long time before he could get them serviced again. The shop girl told him they already had a customer before him, and it would be until 6th of Ayandi for the job to be done. Onres thanked her and said he would return by then. He had a little bit of time, so he decided to take a look at the local herdsman's wares. The trip will be long, and having a pack animal would be helpful. Walking east along the main road, past many of the shops and eateries, he found a series of large barns. Not sure which was which, he took the one on his right. The smell of deer hide greeted his nose, telling him this was the right choice. The building was as wide as its length, with a high corral for the Savinilk to run. Onres spotted a couple that were promising when he heard a voice behind him.
"Find one to your liking?"
He turned to see a young man in simple clothing. The lad looked too young for the deep voice that came out of his mouth. There was an easy confidence and manner to him. Could be a great adventurer, if he chose to. Savinilk have been domesticated in the Sunward region for as long as anyone could remember. The massive deer stood just under the height of a man at the shoulder. Their powerful frames, able to carry a rider or a pack, easily set them apart from other kinds of deer. While they could be domesticated, the wise do not take them lightly. The males could be dangerous, especially during estrus. Many foolish people have fallen victim to a stag's antlers. The youth walked Onres over to the gate. One of the bucks, golden furred with an impressive rack, came over. He bumped his nose against the lad's hand, looking for a rub. The young herder complied, scratching up and down the snout.
Seems friendly.
Onres observed, looking the animal over.
"Not long past his first sprouting.
The young man replied.
Pretty good temperament."
I'm in need of a pack animal for a long trip.
Onres stated, rubbing the animal's coat along his spine in a gentle motion. The youth nodded knowingly.
"You've raised Savis before?"
Onres smiled fondly, remembering good times.
My grandfather raised them for a living. I used to help when we visited him. I picked up a thing or two.
The youth nodded.
"You've got a knack for it. Ever thought of doing it yourself?"
Onres's eyes hardened.
Possibly. Sadly, things prevented that from happening.
An uncomfortable silence stretched between them.
What's his name?
The Reclaimer asked, changing the subject.
"Bumper."
The herdsman replied.
I'll take him.
The youth nodded again, and a series of direct questions began. Was he going to ride the buck, or just walk him? Likelihood of their survival? Is this a rental or permanent purchase? Once Onres assured him this was a purchase, they haggled on the cost. The young man was very shrewd in his business dealings. He found himself liking him more and more.
I never asked for your name.
Parth.
The youth replied, extending a hand.
Deal?
Onres took his hand and shook twice.
Deal.
Parth scratched Bumper's snout one last time before he gave the lead to Onres.
You made a good choice. Treat him well, and he'll make a great companion.
Onres paid for the buck, some feed and packs, then left. He placed the packs along Bumper's sides and scratched the back of his strong neck.
You and I are going to be good friends, Bumper.
The buck turned his head and nudged him gently with his nose. It was just about time for him to retrieve the rest of his supplies. First, he returned to the general store's side booth and collected his order. The items he paid for were inside, along with a few extra bottles of Sart's tart hard cider. There was a note attached. Be safe out there. Onres smiled. Next, he returned to the blacksmith's, just as the clerk placed his blades on the counter.
Punctual, I see.
She greeted as he came in.
I try to be.
Onres smirked in reply. He picked up both blades, inspecting their maintenance. There was a slight sparkle dancing along the edges, the signature mark of Larud sharpening techniques. He tossed a piece of pressed bark into the air. As it floated gently down, Onres reversed his grip on the blades and slashed, neatly slicing through it twice. It lay on the floor in 3 pieces. The clerk gave a small applause.
The blacksmith was surprised to see Boszan steel blades in his shop.
She stated.
Not many can get their hands on weapons made from it.
Let's just say I gave a friend a helping hand.
Onres returned the blades to their sheaths behind his back with casual ease. He paid the clerk for the service.
Tell the blacksmith he does excellent work. If I'm ever in the area, I'll definitely return.
I most certainly will.
The clerk replied with a nod, receiving his payment.
Clear skies to you.
He waved farewell and headed out the door. Ayandi was most of the way to the sun by now. Time for the final check on his preparations. He carefully secured all of his gear and equipment. His food and camping needs were ready. Tools and weapons all accounted for. Lastly, he checked his pack and found the most important part of this journey. It was a flask made from purple crystal, no bigger than his palm. Strands of bronze spread around its rectangular shape, like the twisted bars of a bizarre cage. Without this, Onres would have to wait for the next Longshade for another chance. It had to be now or never. Satisfied that he had everything in order, he took Bumper's lead and left from the settlement's northern entrance. The clear sky darkened as the duo walked off into the distance. No snow had fallen yet. Onres hoped this was a good sign. It would be a long way to the White Spines. By the time Ayandi passed the sun on its way westward, the settlement was far behind him. The time rolled on pleasantly as Onres walked through the frigid shrubland. Here and there he caught the beige and white form of a skulker just outside of his periphery. The sly, stealthy predators were fairly easy to fend off on their own. Thing is, skulkers rarely travel by themselves, preferring to stalk prey in groups of 4. A quadra, as they were called, comprised of 1 dominant male and 3 females. While he was sure he didn't have much to attract a quadra's attention, it was still wise to be cautious. If one was watching you, it was safe to assume the others are as well. Onres pressed onward, wanting to make good time. By half to second shading, he planned to stop in a small forest not far from the road. He passed a large, covered wagon, heading toward Nemdis, the settlement he just left. It carried a family of 5, a man, his wife, and 3 children. They waved to him as he continued on by them.
One day,
He thought to himself.
one day.
Ayandi carelessly traipsed across the azure fields of the sky, finding Onres continuing his brisk pace. Bumper easily matched him with no complaint. The rhythmic click of his hooves filled the otherwise silent march. Thankfully, the skulkers Onres spotted earlier seemed to have lost interest. The weather had cooperated so far, the wind carrying only the briefest hints of snow. He knew it wouldn't always be this easy. Kandris, for all its cold, had a dynamic climate system. The heat from the five sisters, mixing with the frigid temperatures, created winds that swept the snows perpetually. It helps to keep life on Sunward more viable compared to the all-encompassing frosty night of Darkfold. Not wanting to be caught in any snowfall, he kept trudging. Chalithrot had begun its descent into view as Onres crested a small hill and paused to check his map. Reaching into his coat pocket, he grasped Gwenfer's hairpin concentrated. The familiar icy white light led off diagonally from where he stood. He nodded. The path still led to the northeast. If luck was on his side, he'd find his quarry soon. The snow began to fall just then. It was light, pleasant even. Onres knew this was only just the opening act. Snowstorms rarely are easy to walk through. After a brief rest, he and Bumper kept on. Then winds were getting more aggressive now, whipping the snow around him. The path was starting to get lost within ensuing chaos of the storm. Onres grabbed a small container from his satchel, its blue and silver decoration gleaming in his hand. Focusing his mind, he pictured a forest, calm and safe from the storm's growing fury. Rising from the open container, a small, pale blue star sailed above him, leading the way. The man and his buck followed, leaving the quickly disappearing road behind them. The going was much tougher now. Snow was starting to pile up. It was much harder to walk through the freshly churned whiteness. If it wasn't for the guiding star's light, he and Bumper would most likely be lost, stumbling blindly in the tempest. A struggling eternity later, he glimpsed the dark outline of trees. With renewed hope, he pushed onward. Shortly after, he made it into the quiet calm of the woods. The winds had ceased, while the thick canopy kept most of the snow out. He was tired, but knew he needed to head further inward. Finally finding a small patch of land not far away, he set up camp. It was good to be out of that storm. Within moments, Onres had his fire going and bedroll laid out. He was thankful he found a space within a stand of trees large enough to accommodate them. Bumper nibbled the leaves of nearby branches where he was hitched. A small pot of water boiled a mix of dried vegetables for soup. He added a piece of jerky to the pot absent-mindedly, lost in thought. It had been almost a full pair longshades since he began this journey. It felt like he was a much younger man then. Memories of his mentor, Gallum, made him smirk while watching the flames of his fire. With Gwenfer's hairpin in his hand, he'd went to the next settlement over and asked the old Reclaimer's help.
"I'd be more than happy to, Buck."
Gallum answered with a wry grin. He then knocked on his pant leg. A solid knock came from the wooden stump where his right foot once was.
"Sadly, I'm not as spry as I used to be."
Is there anything you can do?
Onres pleaded. He was desperate.
Whatever you need, I'll do it.
Gallum rose from his chair carefully and hobbled over to look the young man over. His eyes were an uncomfortable shade of black that seemed to be searching for something. He smirked and sat back down to the food he was enjoying earlier.
"Come back tomorrow,"
he said after resuming his meal.
Why?
Onres asked. The older man looked back to him with a sly grin.
"Your training, of course.
His grin widened.
Unless you're not as serious as I think."
What followed were the most grueling, exhausting, and unnerving times of his life. The old Reclaimer showed him how to train his mind, focus his thoughts, and discipline his emotions. He taught him that Reclaimers were a needed but unwelcome group on the planet.
"Many folks consider us to be omens of death, the way we move souls about."
He told Onres on one occasion.
"It's very solitary, the role we play."
It was true, while Reclaimers were necessary, many people gave them a wary view. Oftentimes, Reclaimers can be seen traveling with several psyche flasks filled, souls swirling within the purpled crystal. This gave them a reputation as emissaries of the afterlife. An air of respect and fear always surrounded the profession. He looked from the fire to the golden hairpin in his hand. The pink crystal made the firelight dance in his palm. He closed his hand and looked up, and the dark canopy. If he could save Gwenfer, all the training would be worth it. It was the silence that woke Onres. Not just a lull in the regular sounds of the forest, it was an absence of any noise at all. The wind had ceased, Snow had stopped falling. Not even the furtive footfalls of the smaller woodland creatures could be heard. It was as if every living thing in this area was holding its breath in waiting. For what, he couldn't fathom. He slowly rose out of his bedding and looked around. The fire was still burning, albeit slowly and low. There was no one else that he could see. He turned to see if Bumper was okay. The massive buck was still standing near the tree he was tethered to, but he was on alert. His ears were perked, and he was constantly surveying the dimness around the camp. Shuffling hooves gave voice to his agitation. Onres rose quietly and rubbed Bumper's sides and back to reassure him.
It's okay, boy,
he whispered, rubbing his snout.
I feel it too.
He scanned the surrounding area beyond the campfire's light for a few more moments, until he saw something to his left. Or did he? It seemed to disappear as soon as he turned to get a better look. There it was. He saw it clearly this time. Floating within the grey forest gloom was a glow. It had a purplish-blue tint to it. It hovered slowly, seeming unbothered by the terrain around it. Onres was curious.
What is that?
Deciding to investigate, he gave a final pat on the buck's flank and headed off to see what it was. He tried to walk carefully through the fallen leaves and branches, not wanting to be detected. Comparing his treading to that of a skulker would be laughable, but he made a good effort. The glow was always just out of reach, no matter how far he walked, as if it knew he was following. Onres stepped out from the canopied dimness into the sunlight. It took a moment for his eyes to adjust. He found himself in a clearing with a small river running through it. It was either late into first shading or early into Ayandi's rise. Nothing stirred, even the sound of rushing water seemed strangely muted. It was then he caught a glimpse of what he was chasing. His glowing quarry continued into the darkened canopy on the other side of the clearing. He moved more quickly, still not trying to draw its attention, whatever it was. Some time passed and he came to another clearing, this one caused by a massive tree fall. The glow disappeared. He looked around him quickly, but it was nowhere to be seen. After a few more moments of futile searching, he shook his head.
Maybe I imagined it,
he thought to himself. Just as he was about to head back, a voice quiet yet echoing called his name.
Onres Athenon.
Instinctively, he had his knives out of their sheaths and got on guard. Then he realized what he was facing. It looked like a man, or at least Homus-like. Its body glowed violet and was clothed in flowing dark robes. Winds of purple energy lazily wrapped around its form, carrying the figure aloft. The robes moved as if they were in water. This was a mouth of the world, a messenger sent from the unknowable depths of the world mind. They are only seen when something of great importance had to be announced. He had only heard about these beings, but never thought he would see one face to face.
Your weapons are unnecessary,
it said, rising a hand. Onres looked at his hand and put away his blades, embarrassed.
Fear not.
The messenger's voice was strangely kind and stern at once.
Why are you here?
Onres asked.
My errand does not concern you,
it continued.
I must travel far to bring the world mind's edict to those for who it was meant. I merely paused due to your curiosity.
Onres stood there silently, unsure of what to say. What could be so important that the world mind itself would need to speak? He felt like a stone in the path of history. World-shaking events could possibly be unfolding around him at this very moment. The mouth's eyes flashed brightly for a moment, and it titled its head, as if listening to a distant whisper. With a brief nod, it floated past the man to continue its journey. A massive, weighty presence could be felt in its wake. While floating away, the mouth paused and turned its head.
A word of caution. In the future, a valued companion will offer advice. Be sure to take it.
With that said, the enigmatic messenger proceeded onward to its task. Within moments, the forest soundscape returned, as if everything released the breath it was holding all this time. Onres slowly turned in the direction the mouth had gone. Finally, shaking himself out of his reverie, he headed back to camp. No one was going to believe what just happened to him. Bumper's grunted greeting met his ears when he came back. Onres was glad to see the buck as well. The snow seemed to have stopped. It was time to get back on the road. After grabbing a quick bit of breakfast, he packed up all his equipment and bedding. Taking Bumper's lead, the two of them made their way through the forest. They emerged into the sunlight sometime later, free of the canopied dimness. It would probably be early second shading until he reached the next settlement, and he didn't want to waste time. The duo left deep tracks in the freshly laid snow behind them.
If you enjoyed the content, please support this channel by liking, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell for more. Thank you.